Well, good to see everybody. Thanks for coming. It was a very, very disappointing loss on Saturday. I won't sugarcoat it. Thought we played well enough for 3/4 of the game to beat a good football team, and then we just imploded in the fourth quarter. I don't think there's any other way to put it. I'm certainly just as disappointed as everyone else, and ultimately that falls on me. It's my responsibility to get these guys to play for 60 minutes. So we've got to move on. We've got a really, really good UConn team coming in here this Saturday. But the first priority is trying to figure out how I can get our team to play 60 minutes of fully complementary football. Thought we had our best week of preparation, probably by far, last week. I felt really, really good going into the game that we were well prepared, and hopefully we can repeat that this week. We started off with a good Tuesday again today, which was good to see. You know, I always say that every team is different, and it's sort of like an ecosystem in that locker room and on the field. And I haven't done a good enough job with this particular group at this point in the season of figuring the whole thing out to push all the right buttons to get the maximum amount out of them. But we'll keep working at that. We've got this last out-of-conference game coming up this week. It's a big one. And then obviously we get back into a full slate of Mid-American Conference play. So I feel like I'm cramming for a test this week because there's a real sense of urgency to get this thing figured out with a very, very talented UConn team coming in. I think we need to coach better in all three phases. And again, ultimately, that's my responsibility to make sure that's happening. I thought we had a really good plan going in, but we didn't adjust and adapt to the unique nature of that game as it went on. And I really believe, I always have, that incredible coaching can overcome whatever other deficiencies that you have. So hopefully we'll learn from that as well and get better at it. I think one of the things that we need to do, and I've already started to address this since Saturday, is we've got to find ways to play more people over the course of the game so that hopefully we're fresher in the fourth quarter. We're playing way too many snaps in the fourth quarter right now on defense. Some of that obviously is getting back to the complementary football and trying to stay on the field longer on offense, and we've got to find a way to do that. But we've got to find ways to keep our starters fresher in the fourth quarter. So I've been putting a lot of time into that here in the last 48 hours. As far as the players themselves go, I have full faith in these guys. We've got a lot of really, really good guys in that locker room, and they work really hard. And I think and I hope they're learning that there's a really slim margin for error. And we talk about never taking anything for granted, never taking your foot off the gas, lessons learned from previous games, all of those things. And what I've challenged them to do is to start applying those lessons and to find a way, in their own way, to try to make us better here as we continue to move forward. But most importantly, we got to stay the course because we've got a lot of really good things in place. You know, a long, long list of really good things that this team is doing on and off the field right now. You look at this last game in particular, and I thought Taekwon was making really, really nice progress before he had to exit the game with an injury, but just looked more and more comfortable keeping his eyes downfield, making some plays when he scrambled, making some really nice throws on shorter, intermediary, and deeper routes. Thought the O-line pass protected really, really well all day against a very good defensive front. We popped some runs. We had 7 sacks, 5 TFLs, created 2 turnovers, didn't turn it over. Our punt and kickoff coverage was solid. Jack is kicking the ball very well, you know, made a tough field goal going into the wind. So we've got some really good ingredients. We really do. And right now I just need to figure out the recipe, and time will tell if we can get that done. I told these guys, you know, don't expect any pats on the back. Don't expect any attaboys. You know, we got to band together here and figure out what we're made of in the locker room. As I mentioned earlier, super impressed with UConn, going all the way back to last year when we played them. And you turn on the film and you watch them this year and you see a lot of the same. I think their offense is really, really talented, really, really efficient. I think they've got a spectacular scheme. They've got a spectacular plan. I love how they attack people. I don't know how this offensive coordinator is still there because, usually when guys do as good of a job as he has, they get scooped up pretty quickly to a Power 4 job, and he certainly deserves it because it's a very impressive unit that they put out there on the field. Got a really talented quarterback in Joe Fagnano, very efficient, very accurate passer. You got good feet, moves well when they move the pocket, can tuck it and run, but can really make all the throws. And on those perimeter screens, it's so much about timing. And he gets them out there and throws them so accurately, throws a nice deep ball. So this guy's a really, really high-end quarterback, I think, and could play for a lot of people. At wide receiver, number 1, Bell is their slot. He's very shifty. Number 6, Murphy is a very explosive player. And then 5 is a tall, long, Porter, I believe is his last name, a tall, long, deep threat that they're usually going to throw a couple deep shot, play-action type passes to every week. At running back, number 0, Edwards, has got a great combination of size, speed. He's a slashing runner. He runs behind his pads. He gets a lot of yards after contact. And with their mid-zone, their wide zone play, they pound it out of so many different formations. And, it's 6, it's 7, it's 8. And then before you know it, it's 48 and an explosive run for a touchdown. 22, Rosa, is kind of a third down back that comes in and plays for them. 44 also plays some at running back. The tight ends are big. The offensive line is big and talented. Number 181, Hansen, when they get into some two-back type sets, he becomes that H-back. That's something that we saw from Minnesota a little bit, so I wouldn't be surprised if we see that again. But just a really, really well-thought-out plan on offense, and they're operating at an extremely high level. They've only given up 3 sacks. I don't think they've turned it over all year. They're in the top 10 in the country in some offensive categories, so this is a very high-end unit. Their defense is very disruptive. They're very active. It's a very multiple scheme, so it's a base 3 down. They'll do a lot of stunts against the run game, a lot of pressures against the run game and base downs out of this 3 down front, and then they'll stem to 4 down looks out of it. And again, you'll see twists out of the 4 down as well. And then they'll get into some 4 down looks on 4th down, on 3rd down, 3rd and medium to 3rd and long, and twist out of that and all the normal stuff that you see in people's 3rd down packages. And, a nice mix of 2 high and 1 high coverages on the back end. Number 11, Branch, is their Sam. He's sort of a hybrid player, very versatile player. They move him around quite a bit, similar to what we would do with Deion Crawford. He's a very good pass rusher. Number 10, Taekwon King, their middle linebacker, is very active. Number 1, Ben Smiley, who they consider a true defensive end, very productive player as well. I think the entire interior of their defense is very rugged, very athletic. 21, Millette, gets them lined up on the back end. I think 7, the other safety, McLean, is a good tackler. So it's a good, solid defense. I've got a lot of respect for their special teams. Their coordinator was at Miami of Ohio before UConn. Thought he did a nice job at Miami. They're very well coached. It's a good system they have at UConn. There's definitely some similarities to what we do in some of their schemes and their techniques. Their punter, number 17, Stutz, is very good. He pinned Ball State inside their 5-yard line twice last week with some really, really nice what we call sky punts. There are multiple two-man shields, so they're going to move the launch point around so that you can't hone in on them. And Stutz will also rugby punt on occasion. Their kicker is a very good player, Freeman. I believe he transferred from Indiana, earned the job last year, maybe started off the year a little slow, and then went on a tear where he had, I think, 11 or 12 straight kicks. So his overall stats in his career are very good. He's also very good with directional kickoffs. So they'll put the ball in the same tee location, and then they can directional kick off and give you some issues in terms of your drops with your front line. So that's a challenge. Really like their punt returner, Harper, number 19. Very aggressive, very shifty. He rarely fair catches. You got to do a great job fronting him up. And then number 15, Smith, their kick returner, is a longer guy, long strider, good size, hard to get down. They're a middle seam return with some variations off it. They love to bounce it to the field because they've got the speed to get outside you there to the field. So huge challenge for us in all three phases this week. Excited about it. Excited to be back at home. But with that said, I'm sure you guys have a bunch of questions for me, so I'll hold up there.
How's Taekwon doing? A kind of update on his injury?
Yeah, he didn't practice today, so we'll see where he's at later this week. I would put him probably in the doubtful category at this point.
Okay. How would you assess the way Gunnar played and having, he's been on the team and in the system for over a year, his readiness for this opportunity?
Yeah, if Gunnar's got to play, we have total confidence in him. He's played a fair amount of football. He's certainly taken a lot of reps with the twos and the ones. In terms of how he played last week, I would say he played solid. I think anytime you have a backup come into the game, particularly at quarterback, but really at any position, I think what's critical is that everybody else steps up and is at their best when that moment comes. And I don't think we particularly did that on offense last week. So we'll see if we can, with a week of practice and preparation, if Gunnar does go, if Taekwon's not ready, hopefully the rest of our offense will be able to rally and put their best foot forward.
What's the challenge in that fourth quarter situation where you have the lead and maybe the urge is to kill the clock, but what's it like as a play caller in that situation, kind of having that lead in that point of the game?
Yeah, the bottom line is we got to call better plays. We got to get first downs, however you get them, and we didn't get it done.
How does UConn ignite their offense? They are pretty.
They don't need to
explosive.
ignite anything. They're ignited. They are an eternal flame. They've got really good players and a lot of experience and a very good system. They know how to execute the system. So what you've got to do is you got to slow them down. You got to get them off schedule. Try to get them into some third and mediums and third and longs so that they're a little bit more uncomfortable, because if they can get 5 or 6 yards on first down, or they can get themselves into, 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4, now they've got their whole playbook at their disposal. So you got to do a great job on first down and second down against them. Try to get them into more third and mediums and third and longs, and hopefully make them a little bit uncomfortable. And then the other thing is, somehow, some way, you've got to create a turnover. Last week we won the turnover battle. We didn't win the game, but more often than not, if you win the turnover battle, you've got a chance to do that. So our defense has got to find a way to cause a couple, and then we've got to do a fabulous job this week of taking care of the football on offense.
You played UConn last year. Most of the same players that had big games for them are back this year. Most of your players are back this year. How rare is that getting in college football, but how helpful can that be for you?
Well, I think anytime you've played somebody before, whether it's in your conference or out of conference, you have a sense for the physicality of the team. You have a sense for the speed. So I think it's more of a benefit than not.
Is there anything you've seen from the Syracuse game when UConn lost the lead against them where late in the game where you've seen you would be able to attack them? Is there anything that they fixed since then, or have you seen anything from that game specifically where?
I think it was a great football game. There were definitely some clock management issues that were really good to learn from. And I try to study that stuff every week from sort of a macro perspective. It was a real exciting back and forth kind of game. To Syracuse's credit, they started off slow, but they were persistent and had a great fourth quarter to get it to overtime. But UConn fell behind and had a 2-minute drill and got themselves into field goal range to send it to overtime. So it was a very physical football game and very much a back and forth game. And whether you're talking about that game or the Delaware game or the Ball State game this past week or even the Central Connecticut game, we're looking at all that stuff. We're looking at our own game from last year. We're looking at some of their games from later in the season after they played us. So you're trying to uncover any little nugget and turn over every stone and try to put your guys in the best possible position to have a chance.
Understanding you want to win every game for a multitude of reasons, but in the context of how important is it maybe to take advantage of these 2 back-to-back non-conference games on the schedule? These are the games that give you the 7 home games and kind of make sure you get a good result out of at least one of them now.
Yeah, well, we let a great opportunity slip last week, so we've got this last one, which is another great opportunity. And it's not just trying to get a win, for your record and to come out of the month of September, with a better record, but it's also the whole idea of momentum going back into conference play.
How have you seen the team respond this week in practice?
Yeah, so we had a good Sunday. Yesterday was a day off. Today I thought was another really solid day, probably comparable to last Tuesday. So we got great guys. I'm not worried about them. They will absolutely respond. My only challenge request to them is there anything that they can do to be a little bit more focused and a little bit more attention to detail and have a little bit more sense of urgency about what they do. And if there's a handful of plays last week that maybe whether it was their alignment or their stance or their keys, their responsibilities, whatever falls within those parameters on an individual basis, is there something that they can fix and do better so that if there was an issue with it, maybe it doesn't happen again. And then the cumulative effect of 113 guys doing that will certainly be positive on this team, whether we're talking about this week or in the months of October and November.
You said you're always looking for nuggets. You do have 2 former Connecticut players. Can they provide any of those nuggets for you to be ready for this game or more ready for this game?
Yes and no. They certainly have good relationships with people there. But anytime you have those situations, you could always anticipate that you're doing a lot of quality control on the other side of it. So it doesn't hurt.
If Gunnar does start a quarterback, how much does that change your ability to run from the quarterback position? How different is he from Taekwon in that aspect of the game?
Yeah, I think you have to play to the strengths of the guy that's in there. But I also think, to have a fighting chance, you've got to be able to run the quarterback in certain situations against anybody you play.
Bell, their receiver, you said he plays in the slot. He's been catching a lot of passes. Is there
He has, indeed.
a defensive back or two that's you think will have a big week to slow him down?
Well, you got to play great team defense, right? You're not going to just line up in man-to-man every down. So, when it comes to those perimeter plays, it's about how you fit it. So you might have the nickel forcing it. You might have the Mike backer playing inside out. You might have the corner forcing it in a certain coverage. And then you have the safety running the alley. So if you're in zone, it's making sure that those guys fit things right. It's not necessarily about just keeping your leverage, but it's about being thick and closing the space and trying to get knocked back on the blockers. When you are in man coverage, obviously you got to be very disciplined with your technique. And yes, he is very shifty. He is very nimble. He's got very good ball skills. So, and then if you do get to third downs, whether you're in man, whether you're in zone, whether you're looking at some unique third down coverages, you've got to be very aware of where he is. I think they do a really good job of playing a lot of people too. You go from when you're watching cut-ups and you pick a certain category of cut-ups, let's say all of their third and mediums from this season, and you're watching them and all of a sudden, oh, who's 80? And then 15 is in there, and then this guy is in there. So I think they do a very, very good job of rotating players through and then getting the ball to their best players.
One last thing about the turnovers. Is that UConn not committing a turnover on offense? Is that luck? Are they doing something
No, I don't
well
think
enough
it's
to
luck.
protect the ball? What have you seen from them to where they have not?
Great decisions by the quarterback. He doesn't just throw the ball up and up for grabs. There's whether it's throwing a check down or whether it's some kind of move the pocket type opportunity, a naked or a sprint pass or something. He's very willing to tuck it and run and go get 6 or 7 yards rather than just throwing the ball up in traffic. So I think he's a very, very thoughtful decision maker. And then their running backs do a great job of keeping it high and tight and the ball's not swinging away from their body. So they're going to make you earn the turnovers that you get for sure.
So when we talk about playing more people on defense, is that something you game plan and get working on now, or is that something that happens within the game and just game time decisions as to who subs in?
No, it's not a game time decision whatsoever. I think you got to be very calculated about that during the week, and we study the reps, we study the personnel groupings. I watch all 3 phases at least once, if not twice, on Sunday, and I'm looking at body language. I'm looking at loafs. I'm looking at, is this guy moving efficiently or not? And if I see a concern about it, the next thing I'm going to ask is, okay, how many snaps did he play, and what's the sweet spot for him? Vic Snow is like the Energizer Bunny, and every week he's got the highest GPS numbers on our team, and he just seems to be able to go and finish games the way you want. Not everybody is wired that way. So there may be somebody else that you'd like to have out on the field for 70 snaps, but maybe 50 is a more realistic number. So maybe a backup playing 20 snaps, even though he's the backup, is a better formula than that starter playing 70. Now, the caveat to that is the backup's got to be ready to go and he's got to be trustworthy, right? So you don't want to just hand guys stuff. It's got to be earned, right? So there's a sweet spot in there somewhere. Okay.